Hello and welcome to another episode. My name is Ross.
I'm Craig.
Time to put the kettle on because it's tea time. Right then, well, Craig, it's your turn. So what's in the news today, mate?
I think following the last few weeks, we've had slow news, and I think this week is no different, unfortunately. However, dragging the bottoms of the news out, there
That's
was
my job.
there was a US funded research team and they simulated this. So it's not a real thing that happened. They simulated the yield potential of wheat in a vertical farm as opposed to traditional farming. And
Okay.
yep, so they were very surprised and pleased, I suppose, by what they found. They found that given the ideal growing conditions of vertical farm and traditional land in comparison, they were able to produce approximately 1,940 tons of wheat per hectare, which is a hell of a lot of wheat, considering using traditional farm methods in, again, ideal circumstances, only yields 3.2 tons.
Sorry, 3.2 versus
1,940.
Like when I reported the news about vertical farming many episodes ago, and I said the comparative amount of space is like a small space compared to a ridiculous field. Well, those numbers pretty much cover that, don't they? Really? Wow.
Yes.
It's just a shame that isn't the country increasingly becoming gluten intolerant though. Shame, really.
Yeah, maybe wheat's not the best thing, but I suppose wheat is still one of the biggest things that's farmed, and it takes a lot of land. And it's also one of the cheapest, so it takes a lot of land. So cost per acre quite low. So that change. See, reduce hectare of vertical farming is a hell of an investment. But I mean, given this simulation they produced, it seems to be pretty good.
I mean, how tall is this building? Is this like some sort of like,
This is ideal. This is 10.
Paper?
Yeah, 10 layers. So you think of a 10 layered vertical farms over an entire hectare. That's a lot. And almost 2,000 tons.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that once you've spent all the energy and the resources to build the damn thing, it'll give you a nice, good return. But yeah, in the meantime,
I suppose like anything with this type of technology, the upfront costs are big, and you save over the course of its life. But yeah, I mean, the space that's going to save it. I mean, I don't know how many hectares the US of land is agriculture already, but it kind of feels like, I don't know, 5 hectares would be enough to feed the US, like forever. I have no idea. I'm just guessing. But if a current hectare is 3.2 and a vertical farmed hectare is a factor of 500 times, 1,000 times more, then basically you can get rid of 1,000 farms for every vertical farm you create in that way, which is ridiculous numbers. So that's a nice bit of positive news, and on to a little bit of negative news. Do you remember also a few weeks back we discussed e-scooters and bikes?
Oh yes, I was thinking they'd made them okay in the UK. But there was something stupid about it because it was only for the public ones, the ones that people are most likely to leave on the street, and the independently owned ones were the ones that were banned. So we said that you should just write the word lime on the side of it or whatever it's called, and then get on with it. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, so that was all cool news. The trial went ahead, as we said. However, at least for one e-scooter company, at least they are now pausing and on some sort of indefinite hold, all because of where they started the trial was in Middlesbrough. They give 50 e-scooters on the streets of Middlesbrough, and they didn't get vandalized, as perhaps maybe you'd think. However, they were caught being used inappropriately.
How do you
Quite a
inherently
lot.
use a scooter?
Well, glad you should ask. This particular case was a teen, underage teen, by the way. You need to be at least 16 to drive an e-scooter. Underage teen driving at 12 miles per hour down the motorway. So that was the final straw that killed the project trial.
Right.
However, there were also at least 5 counts of riding through shopping centres and scaring old people. There was also 2 other underage riders spotted on dual carriageways and just general havoc of 50 e-scooters in Middlesbrough.
When we talked about the topic last time, it was only available for people who had a driver's license, wasn't it?
Yes.
So what happened to that?
Well, this particular company, Ginger, who was running the trial in Middlesbrough, apparently all you need to do is download the app, register an account. I'm not sure how you get past the verification, but it seems maybe straightforward. And from that on, you can unlock an e-scooter.
Right. So they didn't do what they were supposed to do, and then they went, "Oh, wonder why it's being abused."
Maybe they've all completely fallen over. But yeah, right now the plan was to roll up more, but it's on indefinite hold. So there are other providers who haven't gone on hold yet. So the full trial is still going ahead, but it's off to a bad start.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
That's what do we take corners? Take corners.
Yes.
Not on a scooter. That's not what I meant.
The teens of Middlesbrough.
Youth today can't even drive a scooter responsibly.
Other than that, back to some more positive news. Alphabet. So Alphabet are the guys who own Google. They kind of spun off into the big daddy company that owns Google and a bunch of other little bits and pieces. They have issued sustainability bonds, and the entire point of a sustainability bond are environmental, social issues will get the profits, effectively. So you're buying bonds in worthwhile companies. And they have issued $5.75 billion of those bonds, which makes it the largest sustainability or green bond ever issued by a company in history.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, because I think it is. I don't understand how bonds work, really. So maybe it's something for another episode to look a bit more into. But like, because we talked about that pension fund who were trying to only invest in, so potentially they can buy bonds. But yeah, can you, as opposed to putting your money into, let's say, the FTSE 100 index or an American equivalent, does that mean that we can put money into these bonds for safe money or something? Or do they even have the opportunity to raise in value? Are all questions I'm asking myself.
I can't see a reason why they shouldn't raise in value. I suppose the idea is that you are investing in, I suppose the bond would just comprise of companies that are worthwhile investing if you are a green investor. So instead of investing, for example, in like Vanguard's biggest ones would be the Life Strategy 20, Life Strategy 40. They typically invest in UK bonds, part of the UK market, and they invest in US companies. So one of the US companies is Microsoft, just generally because they are a massive company who's pretty stable. So I suppose these bonds would instead comprise of Tesla or other green companies, which would take the role instead. I suppose that's the idea. So maybe you can't buy directly, but they would exist in some other portfolios by companies like Vanguard.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. I'm going to find out more about that one because that tickles my financial brain. For those that are still waiting on an update from the stock update that we did weeks ago, there will be one coming. Maybe not this week, but maybe next week.
Oh, is that like a repeat thing?
Yeah, I just there's no point doing it every week, is there? Because it's gone up by 1% since last week. It's not much point. So,
yeah, cash in now, everybody. So other than that, we've got some other good news to do with the UK government. So they've definitely been on the bandwagon of getting Britain to its carbon neutral status by 2050. And one of the ways it's done this right now is cut the red tape on battery capacity. as what's my train of thought? But battery capacities right now are quite small. I think 50 megawatts
Battery capacities of
is
what? What are we talking about here? Any battery?
so electrical battery capacities. So the idea of how much electricity you can store in a battery, like for example, an electric car or one of those Tesla Powerwalls you can have in your garage or something. Those guys.
Okay.
So the limit was 50 megawatts.
50 megawatts is much bigger than you would have in a Powerwall, for example. That's like,
Yes.
we're talking kilowatts there, right? Not megawatts.
Yeah, but 50 was the limit, and that's now been increased. I think the red tape is now up to 350 megawatts. So that's quite a substantial increase.
So that's those big, like they have one in Australia, and I'm sure we reported on one being created in Poole. It's one of it's those things, isn't it? It's one of those larger battery packs which are there to help with the grid supporting.
Yes.
It's not individual use; it's for those sort of industry level storage facilities. But so they've increased the cap so that we can build bigger ones. Good.
Yes, exactly. So right now the UK has a storage capacity of 1 gigawatts of battery power, operational battery storage at least. Electricity in the UK has been produced, as we mentioned before, quite a lot. Being our offshore wind farms are producing significant amounts, and apparently during COVID, our electricity usage has gone down by 20% in demand. Probably why I also discussed a few weeks back where one electricity company was actually paying people to use electricity instead.
Yes, that was Octopus, wasn't it?
Octopus Energy, yes. So right now we have 1 gigawatt of battery storage, and the plan is to have 13.5 gigawatts. That's the ideal where we want to be. And I suppose if we had that, we would probably never pay people to use electricity because we can store it and use it on rainy days.
Oh well, it wasn't nice while it lasted.
Yeah, we're ultimately going to solve that. But this sort of red tape removal enables the next news story, which is vehicle to grid. So the whole idea there, I think we discussed it before, is you drive your car around, you go plug it in your house, and technically you're plugged into the grid at that point, and your battery in your car is now effectively part of the battery storage of the grid. And you are effectively lending yourself to that grid capacity, and any excess electricity will just get sent your way. We're seeing in the UK right now, 1 in 10 cars are electric or part electric in some way, maybe a hybrid of some sort. So they have battery. Maybe not that big, but we are seeing that battery costs are going down. So significantly so, actually. The numbers again, apparently it was roughly $156 per kilowatt, for 120 quid.
Mm-hmm.
And they're expected to drop down to 100 by 2023, but they have dropped 87% over the last 10 years. So it's a significant battery drop.
There's like a imaginary point, I think, of like 100. I think it's 100, where it in all scenarios it beats petrol.
I mean, given this benefits to the grid now, I think it's inevitable to win. Yeah. And the hypothetical idea in this article at least is talking about the 38 million cars that are on the UK roads. If we saw, say, 30 million of those become electric in the next 5 to 10 years, we would meet the requirements of the grid humbly. Again, the requirements of the grid are 13.5 gigawatts. Should half of those cars jump on board and be electric, we would expect the capacity to be in the region of 220 gigawatts, far surpassing what the grid would need.
But presumably, we would also increase demand at the same time.
It would, but I assume those numbers take in consideration demand.
You hope so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yes, great. We've got electric cars. We've hit our capacity levels. Wait a second. Need to charge. Ah, damn, we should have thought that.
I mean, good question, but yeah, I'm not a journalist. This isn't the Guardian.
You are now, mate.
I'm not looking into those numbers.
Yeah.
I'm just reading them as they are,
You're a
as the news
professional journalist,
suggests.
but you are a journalist now.
But let's say that we get this imaginary, say, battery storage capacity of 220 gigawatts in the future, fast surpassing the 13.5 required by the grid. Even if that's only half right or a quarter right, that's a hell of a lot more than we need. So that whole vehicle to grid idea, it works considerably well in that world. And it's a far cheaper option than the UK government buying these industrial batteries, as you said, in Poole. I bet that probably cost a pretty penny.
Yeah.
If we can instead just crowdsource that to, I don't know, 1 million litres, then we're looking good.
Yeah. Then we won't have to import it from, was it Denmark?
Oh yeah, the cable, yeah.
Yes, the Viking cable.
Oh, but it's back and forth though. We can also send.
That's true. Yeah. Well, we want to send that more than me.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe we'll start sending more than we're getting, and then maybe we'll dismantle the cable because we no longer need it. But don't know. That's the way things work. But that's all the news I have this week. What have you got?
Well, as you say, it's been a bit of a struggle to find anything worthy of our viewers. But I do have some things. So there's a lot of people vowing at the moment. And as we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, people are saying, oh, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do this. And unfortunately, it's just the news is just full of more people doing exactly the same sort of thing. So we've got, for example, Microsoft has vowed to become zero waste by 2030. Lovely. And Dropbox targets 100% renewable energy by 2030 for its data centers, because they're quite I think it said if left to their own devices, it would end up taking up 10% of global electricity consumption just for data centers if they kept growing as they currently are. So,
but Dropbox did.
So Dropbox is the one that has vowed to say that they're going to make all their data centers renewable energy, 100%.
Yeah.
But some survey basically worked out that if the energy consumption of data centers as they are increase with the general demand of what is required of them, they'll end up being a large contributor towards a global energy usage. So they've made some sort of statement saying, they really should be trying to go net zero by 2030, and Dropbox has responded to that and say, we believe this is our duty to do so. So we are doing this and hopefully inspire other people to do the same thing. So there's that one. But then I bumped into another one and my cynical radar sort of went off. And this one came from, there's an article said, carbon-free diet. Would you like a carbon-free diet? Well, HelloFresh commits to offsetting all its emissions. So do you know what HelloFresh is? So
I have heard of them.
It's basically they make the meal for you and they deliver it to you in a box.
Yeah.
And so they obviously been criticised for the fact that it's a lot of packaging for what's in the box, if you see what I mean. Because obviously it's portion sizes for one or two meals or whatever. So then there was a statement they released which said that they are prioritising mitigating the emissions that we directly produce. So that was my first thing. So direct. So that means basically that will allow them potentially to get away with all the packaging issues because they didn't directly, but they probably just import those in. So that was the first quote. And then the next one said, our highly optimized production facilities emit significantly less CO2 per euro of revenue compared to traditional food retailers, which need to cool, heat, and light thousands of stores. Furthermore, we deliver our boxes as efficiently as possible, for example, by shipping them in batches and reducing the number of kilometers traveled through our innovative planning software. So basically, they sort of given themselves a lovely little loophole there of saying, one, we're only going to look at the stuff that we directly have influence over, and then second of all, if I can find my notes, they are their example is that other places have stores that they have to keep warm and things, so therefore they're better than them. Well, that's just your business model. That's nothing you've done. And then the other one is that they don't send their vans out in circles unnecessarily, and they plan their trips to make them efficient. Well, I'm sure they would have done that anyway. So
they have vans. I thought it just goes to the Royal Mail.
Well, however they do it, the point is they're not. Well, it says that they've got software to plan their things, so presumably they do have vans, even if it's not the last mile, if it's the bit before that. But they're going to do it anyway because it saves them petrol. So,
yeah,
got to watch out these people, because people are saying stuff to make them sound like they're. And that just winds me up, that does, because it's just it's not genuine.
You don't buy it then. You don't buy that.
No, I don't buy it. Possibly the only interesting thing that I found in that article, sorry, those people, if you are actually trying to do something good, but I don't believe you, is that in the they are, in order to combat some of this, in order to offset their CO2 emissions, they are working with something called the Woodland Carbon Code, which delivers forestry projects planting woodlands specifically in the UK. So I didn't know about that. I didn't know that this thing existed. So there is an organisation which you can essentially buy credits off, who will then help to plant forestry or woodland in this country. So I'm going to try and find out a little bit more about that and how one does that, because I hear lots about these plant a tree things, but they all seem to be plant a tree in a rainforest or in America or somewhere else. But so if there's actually one that does actually at least do stuff for the woodlands in the UK, that would be great for us.
Yeah, no, I agree. You kind of made me into the cynical mindset now too. So
well,
I find that as cheating personally.
Well,
you can't have a carbon offset in 100 years. Like, do it now.
So in 100 years, what are you talking about?
As in, isn't the idea of planting a tree that I've produced X amount of carbon today, I'm going to plant a tree, and when that tree's big and strong in like 20 years, it's going to start sucking that carbon dioxide back out of the atmosphere. But by that time, I would have made considerably more. I don't know. Kind of feels like it's cheating a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think a tree sucks out more carbon as it's growing than it does when it's fully grown.
Does it?
Well, that's like a tree, if you like, is made of carbon, isn't it? So in order to grow, it has to suck in the carbon dioxide to make itself.
I've never thought that before. So are you saying that every time the tree gets big enough, we should kill it and grow some more?
I'm not saying that because I'm not 100% sure. But I think, does a fully grown tree suck in more carbon dioxide than a growing tree?
It's bigger. I would have thought so. There's more leaves and stuff.
Yeah.
It's more like surface area. It's got like more suckability.
Suckability. There's a new word. Well, we'll put that on the act list, shall we? The act list of things to find out. But yes, potentially that might be the right thing to do. I mean, also they've got these renewable wood things, which they let the tree grow for like a year or two, cut it down, and then they replant another one. And from what I understand, that's supposed to be a good way of doing it, because all that carbon is absorbed, used to create the tree, and then you use the wood and then reuse the ground again and again and again. But anyway, we'll look into that one. Come back to you, shall we? And then the final one is going on from the government plans, which they announced a couple of weeks back, I think, about the green home grants. They basically delivered more information about that. It's going to be a 2 billion home improvement fund, of which they will pay up to 2/3 in the scheme of whatever changes you're trying to make to your house. and it's capped at £5,000. And meanwhile, low-income households will qualify for grants which are worth up to £10,000 to support energy efficiency upgrades. So basically, all the businesses who would be eligible to deliver those projects, I've now got all the information, so you should start seeing, advertising and marketing or whatever around what you can get done to your home. They said there's some sort of regulation threshold, like you can't just be some sort of cowboy who just sort of, just says, I'll do it for you. But still, you would probably be wanting to make sure that you are going with a reputable company just to make sure that, you're not getting someone taking advantage of it and getting some work out of you. So, because it ain't costing you more. So, but yeah, so that's good. Hopefully we should start seeing more information about that in the next coming few weeks and months.
Funny enough, I didn't know about that only because my mother-in-law had a phone call yesterday of somebody questioning the loft installation about what they had and what they need. And yeah, they were really hard trying to haggle her to go ahead and have them come out and investigate their requirements. So
it's already started.
Be prepared for this to happen now.
Yeah.
So, you got a great house. Do you want some triple glazed windows?
No. Oh yes, you do. How about some of cavity? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
You need this stuff. Better.
And who knock on with the grant as well. Every household in the UK gets £5,000, irrespective of income. If you're on low income, you get 10 grand, and the government pays 2/3 of the bill, which means if you did get triple glazed windows, they cost £7.5 grand. £5 of that comes from the government. You pay 2.5.
Yeah.
Pretty good scheme.
Yeah. So.
And it's only for energy saving, not energy generation. I believe that's the final point. You can't buy solar panels, but you can buy a new boiler, installation.
No, none of the fun stuff, unfortunately. But yeah. But still, if it would be worth your third, I think, to get these improvements done. Maybe we can even offer some more.
I mean, we all get it. We may as well.
Indeed.
Before it's gone.
Did you make use of that? Didn't we all have like a restaurant thing that we could go and use as well? Wasn't that part of?
We do.
Have you used it?
I haven't actually used it. It's Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesdays in August. You got the 5% VAT anyway, but you also now get £10 per head off eating in restaurants, not for takeaways. And apparently, you basically get a free Welshman's breakfast if you want it. And if you go to, for example, an Indian restaurant, which would normally be a 30 quid for a couple of people, now walk away with 10 quid. 10 quid for the lot.
Have you used it? You haven't?
I haven't.
No.
But I have known people who have. But I still haven't gone to a restaurant.
Oh.
I have kids who are not in school, so I haven't got the opportunity. Especially Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. It's a hard ask.
It is. Although next Wednesday, I'm going away. I might be coming to you. We might actually be doing the podcast in the same place next week. Maybe we should do it.
Obviously, we need to do it with social distancing in play and
all that stuff. Yeah. I have to sit outside your window or something. Yeah. Wonderful. Anyway, so the only other thing I did see, which is related to your sustainability bonds, is some article about major investors to pilot a new net zero framework on 1.3 trillion worth of assets, something that Standard Life and the Church of England Pensions Board are joining together to do. So it sounds like it's a similar sort of idea. Basically, they're trying to come up with ways to make it possible to essentially invest in, a sustainable world. So there seems to be a lot going on in the financial area to try and tackle this. So I think we should definitely do. Maybe I'll even make it my subject next week. If it's not too, I'll read it first, and if it's too boring for everybody else, I won't bother. I'll just do it as a news article. But
as long as you don't spend half the time discussing tax implications of renewable investments.
Well, no, because
I'm
I think
sure I'm sure the glazing will stop.
this is if I'll just end up doing this, talking to about it, and then just suddenly just pass out running.
Yeah.
So don't worry.
Green investments. It's a good topic though. I think it's interesting to discuss.
I think, but just given something I go on about a lot, but like with banks and your savings at the moment, with inflation rates being quite low, but interest rates being ridiculously low, you just putting your money in a bank account is losing money. So finding other places to put it is the trick at the minute, and that's why at the moment there's all sorts of weird stuff going on with gold and oil prices and stuff. As people try and find safe places to put their money, but anyway, topic for another day. So, for today?
But today's topic is very close to that sort of sentiment, and I think next week, if you would discuss green investments, that would work perfectly, because today's topic is fire. Kind of physically needs an intro theme.
Fire that's a destructive force, mate. That's what?
Yeah, we got to talk about the fourth element, plasma. Gonna just discuss this for the next hour.
I should go and get my glasses or something.
Fire, as in all capitals, fire. Financial independence, retire early. It's
fire.
Yes, it's a massive movement. It's been something of a movement for a while, but I think during the pandemic, at least, people have been considering a lot more, because effectively we're all sort of a little bit retired right now. So we kind of see what this life is like.
So it's financial independence, retire early. Is that what you said? Right. Okay.
Yes. FIRE. Fire. So we're all kind of retired right now, a little bit at least. I'm working from home. You're working from home. I mean, we've always worked from home, so that's not difference for us. But the fact that everyone else is too, and they're starting to realize what this is like. And I think a lot of people are starting to like this idea of working from home becoming a thing. We didn't actually think the global telecoms network in the UK could withstand this. We thought BT would fall over, but it hasn't. This has been, if anything, one of the best sort of proof of concepts we've ever done to say that actually BT is doing a good job. Those copper wires in the street, they haven't died. We're all at home working from home, and
are we using
somehow,
them? I thought we were all on Zoom. I haven't used a copper wire at all. We're all on Zoom, aren't we? I haven't used a copper wire, I think.
I mean, it's all copper wires in the UK.
Oh, okay, maybe we haven't.
You might have fiber, but there's copper wires there somewhere. Okay. Copper wires to your house at least.
Right.
But let's go Virgin. Virgin are the only true fiber network right now, but they have to dig up your rules in order to put it there, because BT and OpenReach have the entire network, and it's all copper wire. But the speeds of copper.
Well done, copper.
Yeah, going strong for the last 100 years. But as we were saying, pretty much everyone's in a semi sort of retired state right now. Mm-hmm. And I think people are either like it, kind of okay with it, or they hate it. I suppose it's kind of one of those Marmite things where they either like being at home or they don't. I know, like my wife, for example, she gets a lot of cabin fever, and she cannot understand how I work from home and enjoy it. I suppose it must be similar for yourself. There must be people around you who think, how the hell can he stay in and work from home? And
well, see, I feel like, and I think it's just down to like how deep your introvert level is. I think I find it at times I find it struggle, because there was a period where I was doing videos, and that was my opportunity to get out and see other people and interact with people. So I kind of felt like I needed that a little bit. So yes, I can understand the cabin fever at least half the time.
Yeah, I would say my wife is a fair introvert too, but it's stuff like this like chatting over a video call, even though we're real people chatting right now, this doesn't fill her social bar. So
Right.
it's kind of like yeah, a lot of people are like that. They don't get the social buzz perhaps of doing stuff like this. So they still need to go out and they still need to do all that. So if they don't do that, they get cabin fever.
Sure.
So for those people, retiring early in this type of way probably doesn't work that well. But you don't have to retire. And that's the beauty of FIRE. It's a movement which both those two things come together to make a cool acronym. But there's nothing stopping you being just financial independent. Or financially independent, rather.
But I mean, surely there's nothing in your retirement that would suggest that you have to not see people either.
No, of course not. I suppose the idea is
more
that
active.
Yeah, the idea is you get out of the rat race. You stop doing what you don't like. There's going to be a lot of people who like just do a job because the money's good. They may hate the job, or they may work in a sector they hate, which isn't maybe part of the renewable, friendly, sustainable future they want to hopefully be part of. But they're in it because the money's good. And I suppose, unfortunately, if you work for an oil company, the money is pretty good, I imagine. But at the end of the day, you're not doing yourself, your grandkids, any favors.
Nope.
So stuff like that, people might want to get financial independence as soon as possible. And when I say retire early, when the movement describes retire early is just to get away from that, do whatever you want, go volunteer, go become a local community councillor, go start a charity, do something you think would be beneficial for yourself, others, whatever you would like to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really, really powerful way about getting to there.
So yes, essentially it's just exiting the rat race and just spending your time doing what you feel like you want to do.
Yes. So
how does one do that?
Good question. I was waiting for you to ask this. That's
Thanks.
why I kept beating on the bush a little bit. So the idea is, first of all, you need to put together how much your income is. So if you have a lower income, obviously it'll take a little longer. For a higher income, it'll be a bit quicker. But either way, your income is important to determine how long this thing takes. So you get your income, you get your expenditure. So your expenditure will be X of income. And you do a little bit of maths where you times your expenditure by 25. 25 is the magic number because your savings will have to go into investments, and you'd be drawing down 4% of your investments per year. And that's why. Is
this the same as the 4% rule, or is this different?
This is the 4% rule.
Right, okay.
So the 4% rule is that you have a pot which is 25 times your yearly expenditure in a pot. Draw down 4% of that a year. That's why it's 25, because every 4% is a year of expenditure. You draw that down, but typical investments should be netting you at least 5, maybe 7% per year. So effectively, you will never run out of money. And that's the idea. As long as the investment market is okay. But even if it does kind of bottom up like it's done during this pandemic, as we've also seen, it's gone straight back up. So unless we have a global catastrophe with financial collapse, if that does happen, I mean, there's probably worse things to worry about, perhaps. Because I imagine the entire civilization would cease to exist. But outside of that, figure out how much you spend, which for some people will be incredibly interesting, for others incredibly boring. I myself find myself on the interesting side, and I've gone down to the pennies, and I actually really enjoy that. My wife used words to describe me, which I can't repeat, but
because you surely.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I bring up the comment of, "Do you want to see my spreadsheet?" and she
and no, dear, that's not a euphemism.
There's like I can see like there's a small recoil. She's like, yeah, I mind this guy.
Right. Okay, but because I seem to spend a lot more time than I should trying to work out whether there's an alternative way of living, like there's whether you've got you've got a house which you pay mortgage on and all that sort of stuff. So one way is that you just buy the house that you're currently in, but another way would be that you don't live in a house at all, or you buy a tiny house, or you live in an RV or something. So does that come under fire? Looking under different ways of how you could restructure, how by moving location, like Wales is traditionally less to buy a house than it is in England, so, or at least certain parts of it. So does that all come under it as well, or not?
It does, because the idea of, well, basically to get to the point where you are financially independent, you need to have 25 times your yearly expenditure. So the less your expenditure, the faster number you get to. So if you lived in an RV, you didn't have any kids, you didn't have a wife, I imagine your expenditure is quite low. So your 25 yearly number could very well be tiny. And that number, assuming you had an income as well, that was moderate, you could get that number pretty quick. And then you effectively could fire in 3 to 5 years. And that would be sort of like best case scenario.
Or you could just theoretically halve, if you worked it out for it was for a house and a mortgage, then you could go, right, well, actually, surely if I reduce my outgoings for the next 5 years, if I live really like slim to the ground for the next 5 years, then that will knock off however many years before I can become financially independent.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's all about your expenditure and your income, really. It's all about those relationships to determine your profit level, which determines your saving level. Obviously, the more you save, the less you spend, the faster you get there. So there's different camps of thought on fire. There's something called lean fire, and there's something called fat fire. So lean fire would be the guys who live in an RV, very frugal. They only buy stuff past 8 p.m. in the local supermarket where they know it's been reduced. Those type of people would be called lean fire. They would save the bare minimum to basically propagate their bare minimal existence, as minimal existence as possible. And that number would be tiny, so they can get to their fire target a hell of a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, fat fire is the other way. Fat fire would be, my average outgoings is about, say, £20,000 a year. However, I really like a family holiday, so I'm going to put £30,000 a year in there.
Yeah.
And when they get to that number, which would be a bigger number, harder to get to, they know they can then live indefinitely a really fat-fired, wealthy way.
Yeah.
So it very much depends on you as a person. I probably put myself as like a normal fire range. I don't really have a lot of extravagant things, but I do like a certain standard of life. So I probably would be a normal fire, as in my yearly outgoings are around 20, say. So that would be roughly my number. Yeah, would you put yourself on the more the lean side, or?
I'm certainly more fascinated by the lean. I am usually trying to think, well, the problem is I also have a son, so realistically living in a van is not a clever idea, but it always appeals to me, the idea of just going, actually, I'd quite like to just sort of like not necessarily own anything or have anything required of me in order to live, and just know that I've got enough, like I could just draw down enough money to just travel around and do whatever I want. Well, I haven't done any of these things, but I find it an intriguing concept. I think I just see just some sort of hippie underneath somewhere. No offense, hippie.
Yeah, hippie's not a derogatory word these days. It's quite a positive,
probably
the free spirit type.
Yeah,
I think we've all got free spirit in us. We've all had those chats about living in a forest. I still get hooked by that.
I know.
Just the land cost is just great.
But maybe you could buy a piece of land and then offer people to plant trees in it, help you fund it. I mean, I'm just saying, it's possible.
Yeah. Then, as you say, cut them down yearly, like at Christmas, and have a Christmas tree business.
Or that as well.
You could be financially independent and retire early as your local
Which is
Christmas tree
another
guy.
topic we should do, because I'm still a bit unsure about Christmas trees. Not that we go into this too much detail right now, but
Well, like,
um,
ethically,
yeah, because it's like some people say, well, you shouldn't chop down the trees. That's a lot of trees you chop down. But at the same time, they also replant them every year. So is that so bad? Because it's but then the carbon in the tree just sort of gets left to sort of slowly release as it gets dumped somewhere. Versus a plastic artificial tree, which theoretically lasts a lot longer, but does it really? Because you put it away and it all gets a bit scrumpled up and stuff, and then you end up throwing it away after 3 years anyway, because the plastic bits don't not strong anymore, and the balls don't stay. Do you know what I mean? So unless you spend high quality Christmas tree, I don't know which one's better or worse. But I'm gonna have to look into this at some point. But we've got a few months till Christmas.
yeah, it's quite a predicament actually, because yeah, I mean, only one of those would probably end up in the sea. That's kind of my thinking of it. But other than that,
That was the tangent.
other than the tangent to Christmas, not there yet. Um, as I mentioned, investments. So investments and the 4% rule is the fundamental foundation of being able to be financially independent. So between us, we have different investment ideas and strategies. I'm more of a safe investor. You're
Yeah.
kind of more of a risky investor who've so far lucked out. That's the way I'm going to describe it.
What?
But so the safe investment strategy is what's typically recommended for a fire road, because if you sort of put your money, your savings money at least, into investment funds, which are index funds, they are typically the safe bet to get at least 5%. They typically always go up. Obviously, we don't recommend any investment advice. We can't do that legally. We're not any way financially trained. Don't listen to anything. But typically, what people tend to do is put money into investment funds, which are indexed, and they are spread out risk-wise over the entire world. So you would need an entire world calamity like what we're currently in to see any sort of reduction. So if you did that, built up your 25 times pot in an investment index fund, yeah, you could happily draw 4% every year and live forever. And that's the idea there.
Oh, so you can live forever. Wow. There's a whole new perk. Didn't know that. Fantastic. I'm in.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. 4% every year until you die. And then I suppose, I don't know, pass on to your kids. I suppose that's what you do.
I guess it's, yeah.
But yeah, but your investment strategy, very different.
Yes.
But working.
Well, I mean, if we're looking at numbers at the moment, mine is working better than yours. Let's be honest, it is. And that was up until the pandemic hit, and then since the pandemic, I think we're about on par now. Since the pandemic,
I think so. Yeah.
So in addition to before, then I won the first year, as it were, but since the pandemic, we're level pegging. But yeah, for me, it's it's almost too risky to an index. We know it's all a bit rubbish at the moment, and you just sort of you're supposed to just leave your money in there. And so yes, you could take it out because things are happening bad, and then you can wait over time and put it back in. Of course, you can do that. But for me, I like the fact that I can go, right, well, there are certain things which are benefiting from the pandemic, in the sense that innovation gets pushed forward further, and allows me to invest in the technologies that I think are the way forward. Tesla being the classic example, and look what's happened to them. So when you've got those sort of companies pushing the entire market up, then it seems to make sense to have that company being your one you're invested in, rather than everybody, which half of them are doing well and half of them are doing really, really badly. So.
Yeah, I can't shake that you've lucked out with Tesla, but
yes and no. I picked I started investing in Tesla in probably the most, well, the year that it started to move, because it was at $200 a share for about 9 or 10 years or something. It didn't move, and then the year that I started investing in it, all of a sudden it started climbing. But so yes, you're supposed to make something. I think it's the best investors make between 10 and 20%. Like the pros, the Warren Buffetts of the world. That's what they go for, and I obviously made a lot more than that in my first year. So I'm obviously, in that sense, lucking out. But we'll see this year. See how we do.
Yeah, lucking out in the sense of, especially as you mentioned, Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is an index guy. He invests in index funds only. He does not invest in individual companies. So that's
personally, he might not, but obviously Berkshire Hathaway does.
Yeah, I suppose on his behalf. But again, he typically invests in portfolios of stuff. And that's typically what index fund is, just a portfolio of hundreds of things. So not one thing can bring it down. Like, for example, if Tesla went down, you'd be knackered. Luckily, they haven't. And all hail Tesla, reigning supreme.
I'm slightly more diversified than just Tesla, so don't worry. If they go down, I would probably be quite happy for them going down at the moment. So
I so like, because I'll stop buying them. But until that point, the entire point of 25 years investment is, especially in the UK, we have quite a good pension system where if you are working for a company right now, which will meet your pension contributions, you can get quite a nice pension pot, which right now, given the UK's current laws, we have no idea what it'll be in the future. You can take out 25% of that pot 10 years prior to your retirement age. I think for us right now, that's going to be roughly 57, 58. So if we were to build up our pension pot, you could take 25% out 10 years early, get the rest when we turn 60, 67, 68. And that would fund the rest of the life from then on. So hypothetically, you just need your 25 number to get to 57, 58, which is not necessarily the strategy other countries would take. In the UK, FIRE does seem to be more attainable, which is really, really cool. So that's a nice benefit of our tax system. That's a bit simpler as well, that we can sort of forecast this method. But yeah, there's a thing you mentioned about lean FIRE as well. So the idea of lean FIRE probably wouldn't invest in pensions at all, but pensions are typically the best investments we can do, especially with companies meeting your contribution, because they quickly add up. But the problem is you can't touch them until you get to a certain point. So it's very much sending money out the door, hoping it'll be there in 20, 30 years.
Yeah, the reason that doesn't work particularly well for me is in very short periods of my life have I ever worked for anybody else. It's usually been me running the company. So you spend most of those first years of the company not paying yourself very much, definitely not paying yourself any pension, because you're just trying to build the company up. And so, yeah, the pension contributions are too low. But the theory being that you make that money in running the company and taking profit from that company. So that's the angle I tend to go down. Also, because I don't know enough about this, but I don't know if I fully trust the whole pension thing. So there's all that stuff that happened with people losing their pensions, and I know we have a family member who's in the police, and I'm sure they lost a percentage of theirs or something. There's some weird stuff that's happened with pensions, and I just don't fully trust it. So I prefer to where I can see it's invested in a fund, and I know what's in there, and it's down to me to decide where that money goes and how to turn that into something that I can draw 4% of. You haven't mentioned dividends in there anywhere.
I haven't,
because I guess because even in passive investing in ETFs, you can still get dividends from those ETFs. So
yes,
does that not contribute towards your 4%? That's what some people do. They do what's called dividend investing, where they choose companies that pay a 6 or 7% yield on top of the value of the stock. so that's almost naturally giving you a 4% or 7% return. So you don't even have to sell any shares; it just gives you the dividends anyway. Obviously,
No.
things got a bit funny this year because everyone's stopped giving dividends, but theoretically, if you've got enough invested in those dividend stocks, then it's done for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I myself have not got any dividend stocks. I'm very much a normie, I suppose, with investments. I'm not very risky. I'm very much a check in a pot, fire and forget. This is a pot I'm building. It's going to take years. I know when I'll get there, and that's it. So yeah, mine's just kind of in 2 index funds, and that's it.
Yeah.
No.
Like I said, in some index funds or in index ETFs do also give dividends as well.
Yeah.
If you find
I suppose they can.
So that takes away but dividend company, high dividend yielding companies tend to be the very, very large ones who haven't moved for quite some time. The ones that you would consider to be safe companies, because that's how they keep people invested. There's nothing exciting going on in that company. They're huge. They've been huge for ages. And the only way they keep people invested in them is to pay out a dividend every year. So they just tend to do it. And it's actually relatively safe. In comparison to an index fund, it's not as safe, but it's still quite safe. But then if you can go one level safer by having an ETF that gives a dividend, then the yield will be lower, obviously, but it'll work.
Yeah, no, sounds good. So
no advice here. Do your own research.
Yeah. I mean, do your research to every single thing we ever say, because we have no legal cause to accept any responsibility of anything. So in your case, French independence, I think we're both on the same road. We both want French independence because we don't like to work for the man. Well, especially yourself, because I suppose you are the man for yourself.
Yes, I guess so.
But retire early tends to be the phrase that I think trips a lot of people up. It tripped my wife up at first, where she's got this whole image of what retirement is like, and it's when you're old, sitting in a chair, stroking an old dog, watching Neighbours or something. But she was when I first mentioned this whole thing to her. I've been doing this for some years now, so she's kind of been used to it for a while now. She's seen the spreadsheet at least twice, and the idea of retiring she never really understood. So I had to explain that I'll still be young when I get out of the game. Basically, that's the point.
Just change it to stop working early.
Yeah.
Admittedly, you lose your whatever the word is, acronym, but yeah, it's not because that's what the stroking the old dog and watching Neighbours is what happens when you retire too late. You retire early, then you get to go out and do stuff.
But yeah, it's that whole thing of when you're young, you have energy and aspirations, but no money. When you're middle-aged, you have energy, money, but not necessarily aspirations, because you're stuck in life building stuff. And then when you're old, you've got money, aspirations, but no energy. There's always something missing in that relationship. So if you can get out during the midlife period, some people have got up in their 30s, some people got in their 40s, but even if you got in your 50s, 10 years before actual retirement age in the UK, that's 10 more years where you have more energy, your health is better to go and do whatever the hell you want to do. Travel the world, start a charity, become a local community councillor, help people. Whatever you want to do, that's an opportunity to do that. As mentioned earlier, if you do work for an oil company who pays you a lot of money, I suppose the second half of your life could be doing something that you really want to do, perhaps outside of that. I mean, I imagine there's a lot of people who work in oil who love their job and would never consider this, but yeah, I'm not.
They're not watching us anyway, so don't worry about it.
Nah, they're too busy counting their money. But forget the retire early thing if that throws people off. I think it's more maybe Americanized but financial independence is probably the bit I care the most about. I'm very much an independent person who doesn't like to be dependent on anything, and money I do see as the biggest dependence we ever have, which might have come across in the resource-based economy chat we had a couple of weeks back. That's my ideal future, where money isn't a thing, because I just typically hate money. I hate that we need it. So I just want enough of it that I don't have to need it anymore.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit somber, doesn't it? But there's some good resources on how to fire. Typically, I find Reddit one of the best. You've got your UK personal finance Reddit, and we'll add all the links at the bottom of the video. You've got the Fire UK Reddit, as there's lots of very specific advice on how to fire in the UK, which is really good.
Oh, okay.
And you've got the general fire Reddit, which is the more the Americanized sort of way of doing it. It's a bit difficult over there because obviously they got to pay for their healthcare and stuff, which we haven't got to do in the UK. So another benefit of firing in the UK. But all in all, very good advice on how to actually do this thing. There are individual bloggers like Mr. Money Mustache who have successfully fired and are living this life. And yeah, as far as I can see, the people who typically do get to the point where they actually do fire enjoy their lives. There has been people who have regretted it and have gone back to work, but that's the beauty. You're still young. You could go back. There's no harm really.
Well, I mean, but then again, I guess I would say they're probably doing it wrong if they're missing going to work, because the whole point is you're not supposed to stop doing stuff. You're supposed to go do the stuff you want to do. Because I mean, being locked in, I've missed having actual work to do, because I don't have as much to do since the pandemic. So when I was doing the videos, and I've had little projects to do here and there. When I do, it's good. I like it. I like being busy. But slightly different because we weren't allowed to leave. So it's not like you could actually retire in that scenario, because you all the things that you would normally do, you still can't do them because of social distancing and all that rubbish.
Yes. So if you are listening to this, watching this, you've never heard of fire, check it out. If you are listening to this and watching this, you probably would be interested in fire, because you're probably that type of person who's looking for this type of way out, perhaps, of the rat race. Other than that, that's all I got. One other thing. I'll check a link also in the show notes, but I did build an app of how to visualize your fire expenditures and impact.
That's dedication. You built an app especially for this episode. Well done. That's very good.
I did.
Yeah.
It took me.
No, you didn't. I'm pretty sure you sent me a link to this a year ago.
Yeah, it's something I use myself, and it's just a silly little way of visualizing how much impact certain expenditures have to your fire age. So that
Are you making any money from this little app?
I don't.
Oh.
I make nothing.
I'm
a very generous guy.
I was just checking whether you were plugging something, or without under the radar there, without me noticing.
No, I cut you in. Don't worry. But I'm earning zero from this. I pay all the hosting costs and the domain costs. But I'll link it in the chat. But it's fire.everly.app, and it's just a way of visualizing your fire progress and the impact that expenditures have.
Oh,
that's it.
Right. Well, check that out, guys. I guess that leaves us nothing else to say, but thank you for joining us, and think, educate, act, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, lad.